All right, a very warm welcome to the YouTube family. We are reading this book called Healing is the New High by Vex King, and we are at the chapter 4. Uh, Let us continue from the practice 4, personal history list. I will pin you, Shalini. You can go ahead with reading. Over to you. You'll have to unmute. Are you there? Yeah.
Yeah. Practice 4, the personal history list. This is probably the hardest exercise I'll ask you to do, but you're ready for it. Because by working through the previous chapters, you have already begun to recognize how and where you hold profound faith. You have already created movement in your memories, in your history, and in the patterns you store in your body. So you have started to open up space that can soon be filled with more positive experiences and beliefs. And this exercise will increase that space infinitely. And you have learned to look from the inside out and pay attention to what you think and feel instead of trying to guess what others think and feel about you. Which means you have laid the groundwork to do this gently and with love for yourself and with a new awareness that the way you interpreted experiences and situations in the past may not have been true. You're ready to confront your memories, the simple ones and the most challenging ones, and look at them from a new viewpoint. So it's time to write your list. This is a list of past memories, starting early in childhood, that have stayed with you and carry some strong emotional connection. Don't worry, you don't have to list them in chronological order. Not many people's memories work like that. Just write them down as they come to you. The memories you are searching your mind for in this exercise are the ones that have really stuck. A comment from one of your parents that made you feel ashamed, a time you got something wrong and beat yourself up about it, the way a teacher treated you that somehow formed your ideas about how intelligent or valuable you are, the things you did with a teenage boyfriend or girlfriend, the way you treated someone else, which you have never quite forgotten yourself for, rejections, lies that you told or believed, embarrassments, things you'd rather no one knows about you. Search for trauma that you can easily identify as trauma, as well as those experiences that felt traumatic in some way. Even if you can't easily identify them as such, write down anything and everything that comes up, all of it. You don't have to complete this exercise in one sitting, it might take time. So give it time. You can come back to it over the course of a few days or a week. Try not to leave more than a 20-hour gap between each time you sit down to work on it, though, because it's important to keep it moving. Make sure the gaps are small enough that your brain keeps working on it. And when you feel like you have got to the end of your list, draw a line beneath it. Don't keep adding more and more memories once you have drawn that line. Just let it be. Be aware that this exercise might hurt. That's completely normal. There is nothing wrong with you, no matter what you write on your list. It's also normal to feel shame, fear, and embarrassment as you work through this exercise. As I said, take your time and have a break when you need to. If you're currently working with a therapist and feel particularly intense emotions in response to this exercise, use your therapist. Talk it through, ask for their support, or reach out to a trusted friend instead. You don't have to share specifics. Sometimes it's enough to say, I'm working on this really intense healing practice and it's shaken me up. Could we go for a walk? And ground yourself in the present moment. Make your list. Try to remember as you work through this exercise that there's a real purpose to it. It's leading to something beautifully positive, the opportunity. In the pages that follow, to shed the pain you feel and rewrite your beliefs in the way you want them to be. Title your list. This makes it real and somehow makes it more likely that you'll see it through. The title is your call and it doesn't have to be complicated. A simple memories list would do the job. Write your list. Start in early childhood. But remember, you don't need to worry about putting everything in chronological order. Just write the memories as they come. You don't need to write lots of detail about each one, just enough so you know that what the memory is. And make sure you number the list so you can jot down the numbers on the most significant memories later on if you need to. Rate these memories on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being neutral and 10 indicating the most intense emotions. If you rate any of your memories above a 6 or a 7, I would strongly advise that you find and work with a mental health professional with specialized training and experience in trauma therapy. Take breaks when you need to. Come back to it, see it through it. See it through. When your list is done, draw a line beneath it. Take in 3 deep, slow breaths through your nose and slowly let them out through your mouth, letting go. Feel your feet firmly planted on the floor and imagine that outside yourself there is a safe, strong container that only you can open or close. Now imagine opening the lid of that container and placing each memory that you have worked on today into the container and closing it so that the memory can be healed. You have done the hardest part. If you would like to learn more skills for managing painful emotions, I suggest finding a therapist trained in teaching a treatment called dialectical behavior therapy. A few words about boundaries. Many of the people who have not come to the terms with their early life trauma have something in common: trouble setting healthy personal boundaries. A boundary is a limit that helps the people around you understand how you want to be treated and what is and is not acceptable to you. This issue can manifest in lots of different ways, but particularly in how we manage our relationships. In all honesty, boundaries are hard for most of us. No one likes to disappoint other people, and someone who is really good at setting boundaries at work might not be so good at setting and maintaining them in their personal life. It is important to understand that setting boundaries is not a way to get rid of people, but a way to keep them in your life without destroying your inner peace. Healing doesn't mean rejecting the people in your life, but it does involve developing healthier, more functional, and less triggering relationships with some of those people. Unfortunately, carrying limiting beliefs about who we are and what we deserve makes it even harder to be clear about what is and is not acceptable for us. My friend Sheena works in relationship mediation, and she once had a client who was struggling with one of those classic difficult relationships, the mother-in-law. Let's call her Paige, wanted her mother-in-law to feel welcome in her home, and the two of them got on pretty well. Everything was fine until Paige had and her husband had a baby. Suddenly, Paige felt under a huge amount of pressure to let her mother-in-law see the baby whenever she wanted. In the early days, when Paige was recovering from giving birth and trying to get the hang of being a new parent, her mother-in-law would show up at the house without calling first, take the baby, and sit holding her for hours. Paige felt angry. She wanted time to adjust, to be with her new child, but her mother in law felt entitled to that time. Paige said nothing. She made the coffee, fed the baby when the baby needed feeding, and then allowed the baby to be taken into her arms again. Fast forward to a few years later, and Paige and her husband decided to move to a new town. They had both found work that suited them there and were excited about the prospect of setting up a life that was truly their own. It wasn't too far from their families, but far enough that they would have a bit more space. Paige figured that the unannounced visits from her mother-in-law would have to stop because she wouldn't want to drive 60 miles to find that no one was home. They were not running away, but for Paige, the distance was an extra benefit. She looked forward to enjoying her freedom. And then her mother in law said, I'm going to move too. I've looked at a house for sale just down the road from you and I've put in an offer. I'll be able to babysit all the time and even pick up my granddaughter from school every day. Paige's heart sank, but she smiled and said nothing. Paige was working with Sheena on a one-to-one basis because she knew she did needed help with creating healthier boundaries in several different relationships. She relayed this new information to Sheena with an air of defeat. There's nothing I can do, she said. I thought the distance would make life just a little bit easier, but she's going to move in next door. That's it. Sheena listened and then asked Paige a seemingly simple question. During your life, have you ever had to make huge changes that felt completely out of your control? Has anything happened that you had no say in at all? Paige nodded without even a second's hesitation. Yeah, of course, she said. When I was 10, my father moved in with his new girlfriend, and I had to move in with them too. My mother couldn't cope with me anymore. I didn't want to, and I told my father that I wanted to live with just him and not the girlfriend. He told me that if I didn't agree to live with his girlfriend, then I would have to be placed in foster care. If it was a choice between me or her, he had choose he would choose her. Gradually, Sheena and Paige unraveled this even more. They talked about Paige's husband's role in the relationship between his wife and his mother. It turned out that the husband had barely been involved at all, and that his mother always went to Paige, not him, with her demands and wishes. Paige hadn't asked him for help in managing the situation. Why? Because deep down she believed that if she asked him to choose between supporting her wishes and supporting his mother's wishes, he would choose his mother, and Paige didn't want to go through that. She didn't want to push it and risk being told that she was lower on his list of priorities. So Sheena worked with Paige to build up her confidence around boundary setting. And just days later, Paige sat down with her mother in law and her husband together and gently explained that their new young family needed space to build their own life and not to be in the shadow of their parents all the time. Calmly and warmly, she reassured her mother in law that she was valued and loved, but that they don't need her to provide daily child care. Instead, they wanted her to enjoy special moments with her grandchild without being a daily fixture. Paige's husband completely agreed with this, and although she was surprised and a little upset, her mother in law understood. A boundary was set with love, kindness, and confidence. It is important to understand that setting boundaries isn't a way to get rid of people, but a way to keep them in your life without destroying your inner peace. Respecting your own boundaries. You too deserve to acknowledge your boundaries and communicate them clearly with the people around you. Are you a bit of an introvert who enjoys hanging out with people but needs private space to recharge at home? You deserve to tell your partner that inviting friends over 3 nights a week is too much for you and have that need respected. Do you love going out and socializing, but your partner prefers to stay in? You deserve to explain that you need a balance to be struck here and that you want to go out and see friends on your own when your partner doesn't want to come. Or that you'd like your partner to come out sometimes, as this would be respectful of your needs and not only their own. Do you get stressed out when relatives rock up at your door unannounced? You deserve to explain that you're busy and need them to call ahead. Do you feel saddened that family members don't visit often enough or call to see how you are? Maybe you need to let them know of this unmet need. Find it hard to say no to that friend who always asks for favors or money or emotional support and never gives anything in return? You deserve to offer what you have to give on your terms and step back when the friendship feels one sided. Are you in a romantic relationship with someone who doesn't respect your need for honest communication? You deserve to ask for that and be treated with understanding and kindness. Whatever your needs are, you have to give yourself permission to explain them, ask them to be respected, and expect that the people in your life will respect the boundaries that you set. If you respect your boundaries, others will too. And when you start to do that, you give yourself to grow into your healing journey because you're not constantly trying to deal with invasions of your personal space or emotional energy. You're protecting the space you need to heal and be well. You're also being clear about what you need more of from significant others because this is setting a boundary around the absences or gaps that hurt you and you're not willing to put up with this anymore. A simple guide to setting boundaries. As I said, a boundary is not a way of rejecting someone or banishing them from your life. It is simply a limit that you set, and in turn, that limit sinks into your subconscious mind so you are better able to recognize and understand your own relationship needs. Boundaries protect your emotions, our personal space, literally and figuratively, and our vibration. Boundaries also tell people with no uncertainty that you're no longer prepared to accept less and that you won't put up with being neglected or forgotten. They are useful in all relationships, from professional to intimate, and are especially important with the people we love the most because we are impacted more significantly by those who we hold dear. I would like to make one thing clear. Boundaries are not selfish and they are not cold. In fact, I would suggest that they are the opposite, a firm but gentle, warm, and loving way to care for ourselves and others. Boundaries let us love ourselves more fully and offer ourselves respect. And of course, when we are comfortable with our own boundaries, we are also much better at noticing and respecting other people's boundaries. When you establish healthy limits in your relationships, you give those relationships a space in which they can flourish and grow. You minimize the creeping discomfort and silent frustration that grows when a relationship demands too much from you or pushes forcefully into your personal space. Basically, boundaries make successful, loving, and healthy relationships possible. Boundary settings in relationships. Here's a quick guide to setting boundaries in any relationships. In any relationship, take the time to notice which situations or interactions make you feel triggered. What does that person do that annoys you, upsets you, or makes you feel overwhelmed, unimportant, or overlooked? Also notice that you what you're feeling in your body when you're around the person who is difficult. Now go back to the first time you remember feeling this way. It may be that the person in the present context is triggering old traumas. Working on healing the original or core trauma will take the charge of being with this person in the present. Next, relate the trigger to a core value or need that you hold. For example, if you feel triggered when a friend tells another person something you have told them in confidence, the related core value may be that you value trust and confidence in your close relationships. And you feel triggered when someone shows up at your house without calling first. The core need might be that your personal space and time are respected. Now create an assertive statement that addresses that trigger and the associated need or value. This statement is firm but not harsh. It comes from a place of love and respect. Here are some examples. I value trust and confidence and the freedom to speak openly with my friends. So I won't share personal thoughts and feelings with you if you continue to pass them on to others. Or I have a need for my personal space and time to be respected. So much as I love hanging out with you, I need you to call and check before you drop around. I believe in close and caring relationships. I need you to give me more time and presence than you have until now. Initially, you may feel that you have to include apologies or disclaimers within these sentence statements. Resist the urge. Remember that you deserve to communicate your needs and to request that other people meet them. Equally, the other person is free to communicate their own needs, and you can make it clear that you listen if when they decide to do that. Setting boundaries in this way gets easier the more you do it. Communicate your assertive statement to the person concerned with a calm, clear mind. Avoid throwing it out there in the middle of an argument or when you're already feeling triggered. It's great to speak your boundaries in person in a peaceful moment, but if that feels too difficult, you can put them in a message too. Stick to the boundaries you have set. If you have known the person concerned for a long time and have never built healthy boundaries before, initially they may test them. This is frustrating but completely normal, and it gives you the opportunity to make it clear that you're serious. You don't want your needs to be neglected any longer, and overstepping your boundaries comes with a consequence. Follow through. For example, if you have said you need them to call you before visiting you at home, but they show up unannounced anyway, you can open the door and politely tell them you're busy and will have to see them another day. They might react negatively to begin with, and that's okay. Remember that their reaction is theirs to manage. It's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to communicate your boundaries clearly to other people and continue upholding them even when others overstep them. When you keep on showing respect for the limits you have set, eventually the people around you will realize that they have got to match that respect. Practice. Stay calm, take deep breaths, and keep going. Make sure your trauma
That's
stops.
all. Yeah, I think we'll have a stop here.